Welcome to Real Talk, where we dive into the raw, engaging, authentic, and lived experiences that inspire and inform. I'm Michelle Badusky, your host, and I believe that the hardest conversations to have are the ones we need the most. This is a safe space for real talk that challenges perspective, sparks growth, and pushes boundaries. No filters, no fluff, just real talk. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey everyone, this is Michelle Badusky with Real Talk, and I am super excited to be joined today by Quentin Robinson, who is the federal MP candidate for the NDP party in the Brandon Souris riding. So, Quentin, welcome. Thank you for joining me for this conversation because I met you like in 2023 when we were both running in the provincial election. And considering that we were, running in two different parties, I think we, had a lot in common. We had a lot of similar things to say, similar ideas, plans for the area. And now you're running federally. So congratulations, because that takes a lot.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for the invitation to talk to you because it was wonderful to meet you and to talk to you in 2023, and so I welcome the opportunity to talk again today, and also by talking to you to be able to be reaching out to the folks of Brandon Souris and let them know who I am.
Well, and I think that's really important because one of the things that people don't realize is how big the area is geographically. So there's lots
Indeed,
of
yeah,
talk about, oh, candidates never knock on my door. They
right,
don't realize how many communities, especially this time of year
right,
when weather is
right.
unpredictable,
Uh-huh.
how many different communities, let alone rural residents, there are, and you're not always able
Indeed.
to get to every single door, or if you do, you only have like a minute instead of like
Yes,
having
yeah,
meaningful conversations.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it's so important that people realize that. But more importantly, and I'm going to ask your opinion on this. I think I know it, but I'm not going to assume.
Okay.
We get so caught up in politics, especially federal politics, when we talk about leaders and prime ministers and parties, that
Mm-hmm.
we forget that we're actually electing local representatives that represent
Indeed,
our communities and our families
indeed,
at the local level,
indeed,
right? Do you get a
indeed.
lot of that when
Yes.
you're talking to people about your candidacy, that they only kind of want to talk about the leaders and the parties instead of, the community?
It's kind of a mix, Michelle, because there are people who say, "Oh, the leader's this or that," and maybe say, "Well, the federal party is, your party's not doing well, so it's going to be bad for you." Uh, and which I say, well, like this riding is different. This riding is not all of Canada, and kind of remind people of the strength of the NDP that there was in the last provincial election. So there's conversation like that, but also I encounter people say, "Hey, don't I remember you?" And I encounter people say, "I know you for sure."
Well,
And
during
and
the
yeah,
provincial election, you ran for Brandon West for the NDP
yes,
provincially in 2023, and it was a close run. Like,
it
I
sure
know
was.
that people talk that, we live in dead dog ridings here in rural
Hmm.
Manitoba,
Hmm.
but
Right.
you almost actually turned Brandon West orange, which I
Indeed.
don't know if it's
Yes.
ever been done before. It was less than 100 seats. There was a Green Party candidate that split the vote, and if it wasn't for that candidate, and I'm not picking on him, I thought it was
Right.
awesome. It's always
Hmm.
great to
Indeed.
see lots of candidates, but that was an
Yes, it is.
incredibly
Yeah.
close race. It wasn't even called at
It
the
was.
election night. Like my results, we knew
That's right.
immediately what they were going to be.
Hmm.
But yours, it was such a close
Hmm.
race, and then for you to come up and throw your hat in the federal ring, that takes a lot. Like, was it a hard
Hmm.
decision for you?
Uh, if you don't spend a bit of time with a decision like this, then you really haven't done your diligence, right? It is a very serious decision, and to say, okay, because you're not just sort of offering to wave a flag. Uh, I know that what I'm doing is offering as faithful as I can a vision of who I am and what our party platform is, so that people will have a legitimate chance of saying yes to that. And if hoping that enough people will, and what that means is this commitment is not just offering to run in an election, it's offering to be the voice in Parliament. So I didn't decide instantly, and I didn't take a long time, but I took a couple of days to consider carefully, to talk with some people close to me, and make that decision. It it was hard in terms of thinking I'm making a big commitment, yeah, and it was easy in terms of me saying to myself, I know that the world I live in is still not perfect, right? And I want to make the world I live in better. I want to make the community I live in, the community of Southwest Man, I want it to be a better place because I know there's lots of suffering of different kinds, people facing challenges of different kinds. And so I want to say yes to that. And that's what makes it not a hard decision, is because there's important work here to do. And for a long, long time now, my life is about making life better for as many people as I can.
I love that. And I know that you and I share a lot of those same values. We don't necessarily always agree
Indeed.
on how to do that, which is what I
Right.
love
Yeah.
about, I think what I love about politics and respectful politics. Now, I don't know if
Mhm.
you remember this, but you and I met for the first time at the electric vehicle show in Brandon right
Yes.
before the
Yeah.
provincial election. And we were talking
Uh-huh.
about electric vehicles. We both drive one. And
Yes.
it was really neat because we were talking about different policies and politics on not
Mhm.
just the environment, but all of these things. You know how conversations go. And I said
Yes.
to you that I was actually going to be running in the provincial election, and you said,
Uh-huh.
me too. And it was really neat because we had so much in common, and yet we were
Hmm.
representing different parties.
Right.
And yet, when I listen to you, I hear everything that I wish politics was. And I
Mm.
mean that
Right.
with the most sincere admiration because I've been
Thank you.
talking a lot on my show for years. And one of the reasons I ran in the provincial election was because I'm tired of partisan politics. I'm tired of
Mhm.
people just voting the way their parents voted or
Right.
not understanding how politics works or
Hmm.
voting against their own best interests. We've seen a lot of this in the US where, people are
Indeed.
electing
Yeah.
people, without, I don't want to get into any like trash talking or mudslinging, but people
Hmm.
don't always
Hmm.
necessarily understand who and what they're voting for. And
Yeah.
really here in
Yeah.
Canada, when we vote for an MP, a member of parliament, we are voting for the person we want to speak for our community in parliament. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, whatever party has the most people elected forms government, their
Hmm.
leader forms prime
Right.
minister. But at the end of the
Hmm.
day, when we talk about things that matter to our families, it's
Hmm.
that local representative that matters. And you bring a lot of
Right.
experience and knowledge to this position. And, it's really
Hmm.
interesting to hear someone say, I just want to make a better world. But you've actually
Hmm.
been doing that for years. So can you tell me a little bit about your
Yeah.
background, especially the work you've been doing here in
Sure.
Brandon? Because it's pretty phenomenal.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start out just by saying where it all began, which was on a farm, and grew up on a farm, and um, I moved through an educational period, like going to university, but also during that time, I had to go to university for a year, work for a year to get funds. Yeah, I know how it's done the hard way because I did it that way.
Absolutely.
Maybe interesting to know to some people that the 2 winters between my 3 years of university, I worked in oil exploration in Alberta. That was a time when there was a lot of folks who would come from all across the country to find work there for winter. So got an introduction to the oil industry and the work that goes on there. Um, and then when I was graduating from that, then I found out that uh, do you know this agriculture thing that I've been in touch with all my life? I'm really attracted to do that. And so I started a farm business of my own, bought an old combine at an auction sale for $1,000. And that was a long time ago, right? When you could buy a combine for $1,000. And I became a custom grain harvester. And that's how I paid my way through agricultural college
That's
and then had
incredible.
uh,
I don't mean to interrupt. I tend to do that. I just have to,
oh, go
I
ahead.
always do it and then I apologize. But it really is incredible because I didn't know that about you. So when we're looking
Right.
at things that our local MP needs to really understand for our area, because
Yeah.
you said it
Yeah.
earlier that Southwest Manitoba
Mhm.
is very different than the rest of Canada, right? Like we're
Yeah.
dealing with urban issues, but we're also dealing with agriculture. We're also
Yes, we
dealing with
are.
the oil sector. These are all
Uh-huh.
part and parcel of our community.
Right.
And the fact
Yeah.
that you have lived experience in, natural resources, gas and oil, agriculture,
Hmm.
and the idea that you
Hmm.
worked your way through school
Hmm.
really hits home to me because I think it's something that we take for granted. We tend to think that, everyone has the same access to education that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But for those of
Yeah.
us, and myself included, that took a longer
Hmm.
time to do it because finances and resources weren't
Right.
readily available, that's a big
Hmm.
part of the federal government, the national student loan system, post-secondary. These are huge issues
They are.
that matter to me and my family.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah. 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 I think it's important for people to have an understanding whether or not the person that's asking to represent them in Parliament, is this a person who has had to do it the hard way, or it was sort of an easy path for them? Because that does make a difference.
It
Um,
absolutely does. We
yeah.
talk about that lived experience, and
Uh-huh.
I find it so, and I'm going to say this. I don't live in Brandon, Souris. I
Right.
live on the southern point of the Riding
Hmm.
Mountain federal district. So if I lived like 20 kilometers further south, I'd be in the Brandon, Souris area.
Hmm.
I've also got to tell you this. I have never voted NDP in my life. I
Right.
have voted Green. I've voted
Hmm.
Conservative. I was progressive conservative for a lot of years. I've
Hmm.
voted Liberal. I've never
Hmm.
voted NDP.
Right.
I would vote for you.
Well, thank you for that
And I've said
affirmation.
this a couple times, and I am going to, I invited you to talk to me because I wanted people to understand when I say I would
Hmm.
vote for you, how
Hmm.
big that is for me to say that
Right.
even during the provincial election, I was so impressed with your ability to share that lived experience and apply
Hmm.
it to wanting to make our community better.
Right. Yeah.
That's the kind of candidate, that's the kind of representation I want for my family and my
Right.
community. So I want to
Right.
put that out
Yeah.
there, and
Okay.
be
Yeah.
open and honest. I have
Yeah.
invited all other candidates, open invitation to everybody else.
Hmm.
But
Right.
Quentin, ever since that provincial election,
Hmm.
I've been so incredibly impressed with your passion for helping the community. And so
Right. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
totally side railed you. You were telling me about, your background in
Right.
agriculture,
Yeah.
and I got a little fangirly there because I think it's so
Hmm.
important to point out to people that when you get caught up in politics, that it's really easy to, feed off of the memes and the social media and the
Right.
headlines. But
Hmm.
it's not the local candidates that are getting those headlines. And the
Right.
person that you
Yep.
vote for is the person that's going to be in your
Mhm.
community representing
Right.
you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's so important that you have that
Mhm.
background and experience.
Yeah.
So
So what could want me to say a little bit more about
absolutely,
where it
and I'll
goes?
I'll shut up.
Yeah. Oh, oh, please don't. It's a conversation. So if there's an important question or comment, then yeah, for free, throw it in. But yeah, from farming, I was in a farming business with my partner for 10 years, and then it seemed that life was calling me in a different direction. So I became a United Church minister And so as a United Church minister, I spent a lot of time talking with people one-on-one, talking with them often in the challenges of their lives through lots of celebrations too, which is great, uh, but also lots of challenges and got to understand. And that was all in rural areas, in small towns in the Southwest Man area. And then early on in my practice of ministry, I really decided, when I'm talking to people, I would like to be as helpful as I possibly could be. So I started studying in the marriage and family therapy program at the University of Winnipeg. And I did that once again over a long period. Um, they offered courses specifically just evening courses, so people who are already in helping professions would be able to take all the courses. And because they really wanted people who had life experience. And I think that's pretty wise when you're trying to school people to be counselors. The life experience, there's no substitute for that. Yeah. So I did that study. I did the practical training there and became a marriage and family counselor as well. And so for the last 30 years or so, then I was doing that. I was talking to people all the time about what their life is like and learning as time went by, what are some helpful things I can do? What can I offer? What resources can I suggest to them to enhance their life and get closer to the life that they want to be when they're not experiencing it right now? Um,
I think that's
so
so
that's another
powerful.
piece. And then yeah, uh-huh.
It's a
Thanks.
huge
Yeah,
piece.
it's
And this is the I didn't know about your background in
indeed.
business, agriculture, and oil. I didn't know
Uh-huh.
that. I did know about your background in marriage and family counseling. This came up during
Mhm.
an event that we were both part of, and I remember listening to you talking about talking about your background in that way when we were talking about the needs for I believe it was nonprofits in the area, but also community and
Mhm.
how to, really
Right.
address the issues that are on the table for us. Things like
Hmm.
crime and poverty and
Hmm. Right.
housing, homelessness, addiction, the
Hmm.
all of these things. And you spoke with such knowledge and compassion. And then when I found out that you'd spent 30 years as a marriage and family counselor in southwestern Manitoba, and I was like, well, no wonder you get it because it's really easy to get online and start, screaming about federal politics and ideas about policy. But when it comes
Right.
at the end of the day, what our families and our communities need is someone who understands our families and our communities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It all happens, from the grassroots, from the ground up. Economically, trickle down theory doesn't work. And also in community and relationships, trickle down theory doesn't work. It's all the grassroots. It's ground up, right?
I,
That's how
I,
good
I
things are
love that.
built.
And
Yeah.
I used to, and I'm gonna share a little bit of insight into my switch here, is back in the day when I was pulling myself up from my bootstraps. I remember listening, back in the 80s and the trickle down theory that,
Mhm.
we get all the money, we get all the wealth, we get all the power, and then we can help other people. And I bought into that
Right.
theory. I really did.
Right.
And I used it to kind of, propel myself into business and entrepreneurship. And my goal was to make money, and when I made money, then I could help people. And it didn't
Mhm.
take me long to realize that that wasn't working. That you can be helping people, bringing them up with you. You can be doing all these things, like you said, ground up. And if
Right.
listening to Trump for the last 3 months and Elon Musk in the South, if anyone thinks that, you know, multimillionaires, billionaires, career politicians are in this game to help, the average person, that, it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me.
They
So,
haven't been paying attention,
right?
right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this,
It's all about getting rocket ships to go to Mars, right? Once you get $1 billion, right?
yep.
that's what they all want to do now. And in some respects, better that they get on with it and go now.
I love that. I used to think though, I really did. I bought into that idea that these people must know better. If they've been
Mm,
in business
right,
all these years and they've earned all this money, they must
right.
know their stuff. And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
listen to Donald Trump speak. So it's,
Hmm.
like, darn, that's interesting. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
gotta ask you this. Throughout this whole, I understand more than anyone how your life takes on different meanings, right? When COVID hit,
Yeah.
my businesses closed. I switched to education and advocacy.
Hmm.
Things happen.
Yes.
So, what happened in 2023 and now to get you involved in politics? Like, where did
Hmm.
that shift come from?
Yeah, it was there are a few different things that came together for that, I would say. One is getting to the place where I had all this life experience. Um, and so, different, and that happens at different stages of life for different people. For some people, that happens when they're younger than I am, right? That they say, I think I'm ready now to make a difference in the world of politics. For me, one thing is it just took this long for me to think, I really think I have something to offer into the conversation. Um, that was one part of it. Another part of it is as you know, as everybody who's part of families know, that life is real busy, and I was doing a lot of stuff. I was being a minister. I was studying as a marriage and family therapist, and at the same time, we had even though my farming experience sounds a long time ago, we also for 18 years had a quarter section where we had a goat herd, right? Life was really busy. And so at this stage, uh, I've let a lot of that go, and I actually have space in my life, and I have the time to do it. It's not a lot of people earlier in life sort of don't have that luxury and they also don't have the resources to be able to do that, which is a sad thing. But it's how life is. Yeah.
So, needless to
Um,
say, we can say that you're definitely not a career politician using this,
Definitely. Yeah.
as, part of your career, ladder. That you want to be the
Right.
member of parliament for Brandon
Yeah.
Souris. Um,
Right.
I know what I think. Tell me what you think. Why do you want to be the member of parliament for Brandon Souris?
Hmm. Yeah. So that's where the third piece comes in is that for the same reason I ran in the provincial election is that there it seemed like there was a real critical issue of our healthcare system and how it has been running downhill over time, and that we really needed to step up and make that a priority. And other issues like climate change and path of reconciliation with Indigenous people. And at that time, you maybe remember there were these book bans being proposed that we should take out all books about sex education and recognizing the identity of people who are 2S LGBTQ plus folks, right? And all of these things were very close to my heart. And and I say I really need to step in and I really need to raise a strong voice about all these issues. And it just so happens that at the federal level, a lot of those things are still on the table, right? So the reason for running in each of the elections is the same. There are these critical issues that we're facing, and people of goodwill and with some experience in life really need to be ready to step in. And part of it too is I know that back in ancient Greece, when when they talked about the democratic process, then the way they did it was there was sort of almost a lottery that people didn't think in terms of being career politics. They thought in terms this is a duty that we have if we want to have a democratic society. That when the time comes, we have to be ready to have our name drawn to do our duty for the society we live in. And so there's really an aspect of that that for me is that it just seems like this is my turn. It is my turn to say, I will step in and I will do my duty for democracy. And it's a lot easier because all of these issues were close to my heart and said, this is a good time for me to step into that because I can address all of these issues with heart and soul and uh, and some experience to make a difference in them.
I have literally nothing to say after that, Quentin. I think that if we heard more politicians and candidates speak from the heart and talk about how representing our communities is their duty and they want to make the world a better place by using their lived experience and knowledge, um, I think the world would be a lot better off. I really do. I could not have said that better myself. I am absolutely honored that you joined me. We are running out of time here, and I want to thank you for putting your name in both provincially and federally. And
Mhm.
I wish you the best of luck in the federal election. I will be rooting for you. And
Well, thank you.
if anyone has, I'm going to post this online. I'm going to share your website and your information. And if there's anything else that you ever like anything that you want to say before we wind up, by all means, throw it in there. And if there's anything I can do in the future, let me know because I want to see more people, regardless of party. And that's the thing, regardless of party, I want to see more local representatives like you elected because that's where we're going to start rebuilding and building stronger foundations for our entire country is at that
Great.
grassroots level. I think you
Well,
nailed it.
thanks. Thanks. And Michelle, what I would like to say is a big thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Like personally, it's always a pleasure. And in this political context, it's a privilege to be able to speak to you and through you to your audience to let them know who I am because that's it's super important for people to make an informed choice. And we all know that these days. Some other ways of communicating who we are less reliable, right? We're in
Absolutely.
the age of misinformation at best and often disinformation. And I've been saying, like when I do interviews with WCGTV and the Brandon Sun, uh, that really you folks are our front line for getting real information as the other structures kind of crumble and become unreliable. It's the closer to home we get our news, the more likely we are to know that this is real or this is not real. So a big thank you to you. Thank you for the affirmations and also beyond just sort of the affirmation of my candidacy and me as a person, but I love it that you're able to say, I used to vote conservative and I kind of went for the trickle down stuff for a while. And then I've, lived through seeing how that plays out and I've changed my mind and I've been in different places supporting different agendas because they made sense to me and I investigated them. And uh, the yeah, just encourage everybody who's listening to kind of take your pattern as something to aspire to really look into things, to really think through things, to not get stuck in the same place all the time. Yeah, when growing up, I was in a different place politically too, right? And I think that's a good thing that we kind of grow and evolve and at different moments in time that we're ready to make our decision based on the facts of where we are right now in this
I
time in this place.
100% agree with you because I think what we've seen in the last 10, maybe 15 years or so is that we put all of our eggs in one basket. We support a party. We
Mhm.
support a party or a leader. And then we get really disillusioned when they do something we don't agree with. And the
Mhm.
truth is, we are never going to agree with 100% of everything that someone or a party does. It's never going to happen. We're
True.
looking for this
Yes.
perfect representation. And yet, what we're forgetting is that if we elect people whose morals and values and ethics
Right.
align with ours, more often than
Hmm.
not, they are going to make decisions to represent us in a way that we
Right.
agree with.
Yeah.
And that's where the internet has cost us, I think, is that we've become so political, when it comes to parties and leadership, that we forget that the
Hmm.
true
Hmm.
representatives are the ones that are right in our own
Right.
community, giving
Yeah.
their time, giving their energy like you are back
Hmm.
into that community and wanting to do the best job
Yeah.
possible. And
Yeah.
so, Quentin,
Yeah. It's
thank you
become,
again
yeah.
so
Yeah.
much for joining me. This is real talk. It's always been real, right? And it's all about the real, kind of unedited version. I don't
Hmm.
like splicing. I don't like, fancy
Right.
edits. I want people to understand who's talking, what they are, what they believe in, who they are. And
Right.
you've done just that. So thank you so much for, letting me
Well,
get to
thank
know
you.
you and through me sharing it with our audience. And I wish you the best of luck on Election Day.
Thanks very much, Michelle.
That's it for this episode of Real Talk, where we tackled the hardest conversations because they are the ones we need the most. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay real, stay engaged, and keep living your authentic truth.